What is going on, you guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, and we are back once again to talk some wrestling. And this time, we are talking about WWE Clash in Italy, live from Turin, Italy. Their first PLE in this country, and overall, top to bottom, I thought it was a pretty good show. There was enough good action and good matches on the show that were enough to make this an overall good show. There were plenty of matches on this show that I was thoroughly entertained by. With that out of the way, you look at the outcomes of a lot of the matches on this show, and man, that status quo just remains unchanged. You have on this show so many instances. In fact, the three big main events that this show was revolved around and built around all just stuck to the status quo. Didn't dare to shake things up. Didn't dare to be a little extra creative. Didn't dare to go off the beaten path and deviate away from expectations or anything like that. It's just, this is what it is. This is what we have always done. And this is what we will always continue to do. We had Cody Rhodes versus Gunther for the WWE Championship, and it ended in a way where Cody remains champion, but Gunther has a reason to complain and feel screwed over because of the finish. But in the end, Cody retains, and they did the finish in a way where it predictably sets up an immediate rematch in the future. Brock Lesnar, Oba Femi, they rematched these two after Oba got such a dominant win over Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania last month. They came back at it again here, and Brock, after coming back out of retirement, he just got his win right back, and that was it. And then, of course, in the main event between Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu, tribal combat for the World Heavyweight Championship. They had the opportunity to shake things up with this very long, drawn-out Bloodline story, teasing the idea that if Jacob were to win the championship here, he would basically be the new head of the table, and Roman would have to play backup to him. He would be second string. He would be the corner man. He would be, in behind. And Jacob is the one up front. He's the front man. He's the quarterback. He's the one calling the shots. He's in charge. But no, Roman won. He's still the champion. And Jacob, at the end of the night, had to fall in line. As the Usos came out there, Roman had Jay yelling at Jacob to just come right along. And Jacob, after being beaten, just has this sad puppy dog look on his face and has to have his tail tucked between his legs and just straddles along in the back of the line. Meanwhile, Solo Sikoa, Tala Tonga, and Tama Tonga are in the front row at ringside, just looking on at everything. And there was a little bit of a tease there with Roman and the Usos and all of them. And that's where we stand. Because, yes, while many of these matches were good, Roman and Jacob, those first few minutes were not. They were quite boring in my opinion. But as the match continued on, it got better. The fans were hot for it. The crowd on this show was incredible. In fact, a lot of my positive thoughts on this show and a lot of the matches on here were boosted by how hot the crowd was and how into it they were into everything here. So they were into that main event, really into Roman, of course, but they had a good match. Brock and Oba, they had a much better match than the WrestleMania one. The WrestleMania match was more of a statement for Oba that he arrived. He got the big win, the big shock win over Brock Lesnar. But this one on this show was far more competitive and back and forth, and it turned out to be a pretty entertaining match. We also had on this show the Women's Intercontinental Championship with Sol Ruka and Becky Lynch, and that turned into a pretty good match. A little rough and rigid at certain parts, but by the end, the fans were firmly behind Sol Ruka and were really into it, and that turned out to be a good match. Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill. The two of them had a shockingly good match at WrestleMania. This one was probably even better than that one. And while that one was Jade Cargill's best match to date in WWE, this match usurped that one. And this is the new best match that Jade has had in WWE. I don't know what it is. These two, promo-wise and character-wise, they do not mesh well in TV segments, and they create rather boring television together. But when the bell rings and the two of them lock up, we've had 2 instances of it now. The fans are into it, and they have very good in-ring chemistry. So hats off to the two of them. They have blown away any expectations I have ever had for the two of them competing in the ring together, and they turned out 2 really good back-to-back matches with each other. So hats off to the two of those ladies. But again, overall, the show was a good show. Nothing compared to Double or Nothing last week. Nothing compared to what we saw the previous night at the AAA show, especially that main event with the 2 El Grande Americanos. That is a match of the year caliber. I'm not going to get too deep into it right now, but if you didn't watch that match, please do. The match itself, the crowd, electric, does not even do it justice. That was otherworldly. But yeah, so that was great stuff there. But this show, again, great crowd and some good matches, but you look up and down with a lot of these big matches here. And I mean, you could throw Rhea in there. You know, hey, Rhea Ripley, she's a pretty reliant and, consistent presence in the championship scene for the women's division too. But like, I mean, her beating Jade, Jade winning the belt back would not have meant anything. Jade's run as champion, they did her no favors the way they booked her, and they made her reign look so weak. And I just hope that they don't do that with Rhea. They've done that with Rhea in the past. This company just does not know how to book their women's world champions. Exhibit A, Liv Morgan, who her only appearance on this entire show was on the Countdown Kickoff show, got one of the biggest reactions of anybody who was actually on the show. But all they had, for the best they had for their women's world champion, who coming out of WrestleMania has not had a single defense of that championship, has not had a single firmly established, defined feud coming out of WrestleMania. She's just been a manager for Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez. All they have for her on this show, on this big show where she gets that big reaction, is to say a few things on the pre-show and wave in the crowd during the actual event. So don't tell me that this is a company that knows how to properly handle and book their champions, because Liv Morgan currently, as we speak, is a perfect example of the fact that they do not. But even still, I'm not going to lump Rhea in there too much, because that's not really the point that I'm trying to make. Let's circle around to the main event. We'll talk about that first here. Roman and Jacob. Again, those opening few minutes were rather boring. This is a tribal combat match. We've had a few of them. Not to be confused with Bloodline rules, because apparently that's completely different, even though both matches really are the same. But you had some weapons here. You had a couple of chairs and a toolbox, some steel steps. Somebody went through the announce table at one point. That was about it. It really wasn't too crazy, too extreme. These matches usually aren't. Roman plays it very slow and tries to build up in his matches. That's fine for him. It works, and it works for the fans, because they were going crazy for Roman all night long. At different points, they started to come alive for Jacob, but they were firmly in the camp of Roman Reigns. And Roman, at different points, was getting frustrated. He kept escaping the tongue and death grip, and he tried to eliminate it by basically attempting to break Jacob's hand. He smashed his fingers with a toolbox, so anytime from that moment on that Jacob tried to go for that tongue and death grip, he couldn't properly put it in right because his hands had been weakened. At one point, Roman exposed all of the turnbuckles coming after what happened in their previous match at Backlash. This time it's no DQ, so he just exposed all of them. And towards the end, he just kept smashing Jacob's head into one of the exposed turnbuckles just over and over and over again. He speared him through a table propped up in the corner and then stood him up in the middle of the ring, charged the ropes back and forth, and hit one final spear to get the win. And like I mentioned earlier, Roman Reigns still the World Heavyweight Champion. And then after the match, out came the Usos, who stood tall with Roman. They placed the lei around Roman's neck. They're all staring down at Jacob, who is seated in the corner, looking as sad as can be. Michael Cole is on commentary talking about how the werewolf has been neutered and he's gonna have to be subservient to Roman and do bloodline services for him. And then they leave. For some reason, the MFTs are out there at ringside. We have Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Tala Tonga. They're all out there, and they're staring down Roman and the Usos. Roman's telling Jay and Jimmy, like, oh, they're going to get it next. Them next. And they leave. Jacob, basically limping along from the rear, he looks over at the MFTs, and they're shaking their head at him, and he has to just tread along to the back with the Bloodline. Jay is there yelling at him and telling him to come along and all that, and Roman's talking shit into the camera, and that's how they went off the air going into the post show. And yeah, so that's it. Now I know people love Roman Reigns. People love Roman. They love the Bloodline. They have loved this storyline for the past several years, and these are people who look at it with no issues whatsoever. They think it's just as great as it's always been. They love the fact that Roman is a champion again. They love the fact that him and the Usos are reunited. The people cheer for him. They sing his name. People on social media, they just go crazy for him. They put their little one emojis up in their posts. They call him the god of pro wrestling. They just shower all this love and praise and adulation over every single thing Roman Reigns does, and he can just do no wrong in their eyes. For those people, they're having fun. They get to watch what they want to watch, and they can comment about how much they love it and how much they enjoy it. I don't care if this puts me in the minority. I don't care if this makes me an outsider looking in. I don't care. I ain't trying to rain on anybody's parade. I ain't trying to diminish anybody's fun. All I can do is speak my own mind and speak my own feelings about how I feel about it. And how I feel about it is this Bloodline shit is boring as hell. We are in 2026. Please, I'm begging someone to explain to me what is so drastically different about this Bloodline storyline right now as we speak on the last day of May in 2026. As I'm recording this, it is May 31st, 2026. What is so different about this storyline right now, present day, compared to what it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago? Except the only real difference is that 3-4 years ago, it was far more interesting than it is now, to me at least. Everything I'm saying here is from my perspective. I'm not speaking for anybody else. This is just me. But this Bloodline stuff has just been dragged on for so long. This company has proven that they are incapable of truly producing multiple good stories at the same time outside of the Bloodline stuff. And even the Bloodline stuff has worn out its welcome in my eyes. The Roman Reigns character is so completely one-dimensional. The only difference between how Roman Reigns comes off on TV now compared to 2024 or 2023 is that the fans cheer for him a lot more often now than they did back then. And even then, they were starting to cheer for him a lot, but right now he is firmly beloved by everybody. But what has changed about his character? What has evolved with his character? How has his character evolved or grown or morphed and shifted? Anything. He is the exact same person that he was when this Bloodline story started all the way back in August of 2020. He is the same person. I guess he's less of a dick. He doesn't necessarily boss the Usos around a whole lot, although based on what happened at the end of the show, that looked like him bossing them around a little bit. But I guess they're equals, even though every time we see them, they're always behind him. But sure, they're equals. There's nothing different about this Roman Reigns character. Even the Usos, they just fell right back in line. No pushback, they have no individuality anymore. When's the last time Jey Uso, as annoying as those yeet entrances became, when's the last time Jey Uso made an entrance on his own? When's the last time the Usos did anything on their own on TV? They haven't even wrestled since WrestleMania. And now Jacob Fatu, who, hey, good for him. He got to be working with his cousins and working in a world championship program, got to main event 2 straight PLEs. Good for him. I love Jacob. Jacob's great, and I hope he can ascend to being in that top spot one day. But now he's wrapped up in this, and it's now to the point where the commentators even said it, you know? The commentators are supposed to have credibility, and they were even talking about how he's neutered. They blatantly said Jacob Fatu got neutered. He got humbled, he got domesticated, and now he's basically Roman's bitch. You can say whatever you want about it. He has to fall in line. He has to do their services, whatever the hell you want to call it. He's basically Roman's bitch. That's what he is. Now, maybe there's some long-term storyline here. Maybe the plan here is this is going to drag on for several weeks, maybe a few months of Jacob being in the background, not saying anything. He has to bite his tongue. He has to do whatever Roman tells him to do. Again, a very heelish act, but the people are still going to sing his name and cheer for him because, okay. But that's very much something that Roman Reigns of old would have done. He's just going to order him around, boss him around. The Usos are going to boss Jacob around too. I don't know where the hell the MFTs are going to come into this. That's a whole different story. That is an entire act in and of itself that's boring and lifeless that now may or may not be shoved into this already boring and lifeless story, but okay. But for Jacob, he'll be in that kind of position, and then they're going to build to him growing further and further resentment, making the crowd want to see him stand up for himself and finally break away. He might do that, and then maybe this will lead all the way to SummerSlam, and we'll get a third match out of it, and Jacob will finally get that win over Roman there. I thought a SummerSlam championship match was in the cards for one Oba Femi, but it looks like Oba might have a different date for SummerSlam. We'll get to that in a little bit, but maybe that's what this is. I don't know. I have no idea where this is going. They said starting on Raw tomorrow, as of this recording, tomorrow, that's where this whole Jacob falling in line stuff will start. So we'll see how that plays out. But I'm just so sick and tired of the Bloodline story. It's not that good in my eyes. They have done absolutely nothing with this story or these characters that is any different or more creative or more dynamic or more engaging or entertaining compared to what it was in its heyday. This is not the days of Sami Zayn and the honorary Uce. This is not the days of, the tribal court segments and all that stuff that was actually really interesting week to week. I'm glad Roman's on the show regularly, but there's just nothing about him as a character that I find all that engaging. I know people love him. I like Roman. Roman's fine enough in certain doses, and I had no issues with him becoming the champion, especially if it meant that he would be on TV regularly, and he has. That's fine. But what he's doing on TV is not all that interesting. Him as the champion is not all that interesting. And this feud with Jacob, quite frankly, although I'm glad to see Jacob in the top spot, it has not been all that interesting. Maybe this will be a way to make it interesting. I don't know. But we'll see where it goes. Speaking of where we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes with Cody Rhodes and Gunther, because they opened the show for the WWE Championship. They had a match, Was it good? I mean, I guess it was pretty short, and it felt like both men were kind of holding back. They didn't really give it their full force here. We've seen the two of them have a match before. They had a champion versus champion match at Crown Jewel a couple of years ago. That was the first time we got the Crown Jewel Championship. So that was a pretty good match. Cody won that one. Now fast forward all these years later, Gunther just came to SmackDown. He's a new big bad to feud with Cody for the championship. And here, these two it was pretty back and forth. They were spamming some of their moves, and Gunther was locking in the sleeper and all that. But what it came down to in the end was Cody hitting Gunther with a crossroads and pinning him and getting the win. However, while he was pinning Gunther, he was by the ropes, and Gunther's foot was very clearly, blatantly underneath the bottom rope throughout the duration of the pin. But where the referee was positioned, he didn't see that. And so after the match, Gunther's throwing a fit. He's arguing with the referee, but the referee's decision is final in this case. Now, this company, we know, WWE, very inconsistent. Because we have seen in the past sometimes where a second referee will come out and say, hey, this is what happened. And the original referee will reverse their decision or make the match continue. Sometimes the referee will just look up at the screen and see the replay. And based off of that alone, they will reverse their decision or allow the match to continue. But here, for whatever reason, the referee's decision was final. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. They are incredibly inconsistent with that. There's a lot of inconsistencies in wrestling. I know, this is nothing new. I get it, but just felt like that needed to be said. But the bigger issue here, one, Gunther got pinned by Cody. This is the same man who has been deemed the career killer. He was supposed to have all this momentum, having retired John Cena and retiring AJ Styles and being this big bad villain who needs to be stopped. Look, I'm not going to get too hung up on the fact that he lost here. Yes, I didn't want to see him lose in this particular match, just like I didn't want to see Jacob lose either. So it sucks that both of these guys who, in a different world, very easily could have walked out of this show both being champions and could have shaken things up a little bit. But instead, they chose the predictable route and had their two QBs, basically. And by the way, Roman has usurped Cody as QB1, so he can take that out of his Twitter bio now, because Roman, so long as Roman is holding that championship, he is the main focal point of the entire company. It doesn't matter what the belt is, and it doesn't matter what show he is on. Anything Roman is doing is easily the number one thing in the company right now. So, just putting that out there too. But Gunther losing here by such a lame finish, I know, obviously, it sets up a rematch. A rematch that might come as soon as Night of Champions. I get it. I understand what the purpose of it is. It's just, as a finish, clear and plain as day, set out, it was so lame. Also lame because we've basically seen this. We saw it multiple times with Drew McIntyre. That was the entire feud with Drew McIntyre. Them finding different ways to screw over Drew McIntyre. Oh, he had his foot on the rope. Oh, the referee counted too fast. Or the referee missed this or missed that. Oh, Cody cheated because Drew tried to cheat using a belt, but the referee caught him. But then Cody did the same thing. The referee didn't catch him, so then he lost. All this garbage until it just got to a point where it's like, bro, you keep beating Drew over and over again. Eventually he has to win. And then even by that point, will it even mean anything? The answer in hindsight and in retrospect was no, because he just lost it right back to Cody in like a month later anyway, which was to be expected, but even still, the way it came off was very lame and did Drew no favors, really. His title win was a pity win because they booked themselves into a corner where they wanted to continue that feud, but they just could not continue beating Drew. They could have. They easily could have just beaten Drew over and over again, but to try to allow him to have some shred of credibility left, they threw him a bone and gave him a little pity title run, and then it was over. Now I fear they're going in the same direction with Gunther, and it just makes Gunther, who, I mean, yes, he's lost a lot of steam. They have not really handled his character all that well since beating John Cena last year, but there is a certain presence and certain aspect of his character that should remain looking somewhat strong and top tier and not just another guy. By losing here to Cody, even if it wasn't all that clean, because the referee just didn't see his foot on the ropes. So essentially, I mean, you could argue whether it's clean or not, but even still, just the fact that he just lost to Cody, and even if there is an excuse for it and he gets to rant and complain about it, he's just another guy on the show. There's nothing special about Gunther. There's nothing special or unique about him versus Cody. He's just another guy who will eventually maybe beat him. That's not even a guarantee. They could run this match back in a few weeks, Night of Champions, and Cody could just win decisively. Clean right in the middle of the ring, and then that's over. And then Gunther slides back down the card to do whatever, and Cody remains champion. And I know Cody's their top guy. He's their top baby face. They love Cody. People, I know a lot of people don't like him. It's funny. A lot of the people who complain about Cody Rhodes for being bland and boring and uninteresting. He needs a character change. There's no change in his character. There's no evolution to his character. A lot of the people complaining about that also relentlessly, undeniably and devotedly love Roman Reigns, even though the exact same complaints about his character can still be applied to him. But shocker, wrestling fans are hypocritical. This is something we all know. So yeah, I expect there to be a rematch here. That was the whole point of the finish. I just wish they could have done something different. Apparently that's asking for too much to request or hope that WWE can do something different. And you know what? Maybe it is. And that's my own fault for watching these shows, hoping that WWE can do something different sometimes, when more often than not, they do not. They did something different. The only different thing on this show was putting the belt on Sol Ruca. We'll get to that later. But coming out of this show, like, as soon as it happened, I'm like, because up to that point, all these matches took place and they had the finishes that they did, and then Sol won the Intercontinental Championship. And it's like, I came away from that thinking, good for her and all that, but I'm like, that's it. Like, Roman's winning at the end, and that's all we're getting. That's the bone. Like, see, we can shake things up a little bit. We can do something different. We gave the new girl, who's been on TV for a few weeks and hasn't won a singles match, not counting that BS DQ victory at Saturday Night's Main Event the previous week in that dog shit match with Becky. Here, we shocked you. We put the belt on her here. Okay. Sure. All right. But anyway, that's Cody and Gunther. I really don't have much else to say about that, because we also have to talk about Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. Of course, Brock Lesnar retired. I use quotes for that at WrestleMania. Came right back about a month or so later and picked right back up with his feud with Obafemi for this match here. And yes, this match far and away better than the one they had at WrestleMania. That was more for the shocking moment of it. This one was a more competitive back and forth match. Brock was pretty dominant early on. He surprised him and scooped him up for an F5. And they made Oba look very strong here. He ate, 7 F5s total? One of them being through the announce table. And then even then, when the referee was counting out, which I was fearing that this was about to be a count-out win for Brock. But while the referee's counting Oba out, Oba just sits up and walks right back into the ring, just shakes off going through the announce table like that. He kicked out of so many F5s in this match. He got in some big offense. But in the end, as he was going for his fall from grace, Brock slipped out, leaped down, scooped Oba up for the 7th F5 of the match, and finally got the 1-2-3. So Brock Lesnar wins. Both men are tied up 1 win apiece, and this is very clearly going to a third match. The question is, When is said third match going to happen? Is this going to be at Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia? Or is this going to be saved for SummerSlam in Minneapolis? I don't know what direction they're going in. I'm not even going to shudder to predict it. My guess is that this is going to be saved for SummerSlam. Now, will that end up being Brock's real retirement? No. I would be shocked if it was. If WrestleMania wasn't the way he was going to go out, and that was a perfect way to have him send off, if that wasn't going to be his retirement, then this man is never going to actually formally retire, in my mind. But I can see this leading to a third match at SummerSlam, and Oba gets the win there. Now, in this match, did I want to see Oba win? Yes. Did Brock need to win this match in order to get to a third match and make this a trilogy? No, he did not. There was a little feud back in the day, about 20 or so years ago, between two men called Triple H and Batista. Triple H, after having years of going through this reign of terror where he just beat everybody and ruled with an iron fist on Raw with that World Heavyweight Championship, a few losses here and there, but for the most part, he remained the dominant force on the show until he ran into Batista. They had this really good feud blown off at WrestleMania, and then they proceeded to have two more matches that year. One more at Backlash, and then a Hell in a Cell match at Vengeance. Guess what happened in all three of those matches? Batista won. Batista won at WrestleMania. He beat Triple H again at Backlash, and then they came back for a third match, and Batista beat him inside Hell in a Cell and got the dominant win over him. Why couldn't they have done that with Brock Lesnar here? Is it so impossible to just have Oba, like, even if they wanted to do a trilogy, you want to really put this guy over, then have him win. Again, they did everything in their power to make Oba look strong here with how dominant he was and how it took all of these different moves and offense against him to put him down, but you want to really make him look strong? Do all of that stuff, and then in the end, Oba wins still. And then they come back for a third match either next month or in 2 months, and guess what? Oba wins again. Brock Lesnar can't figure this guy out. Oh, it's so unbelievable that Brock Lesnar would lose 3 straight matches to one guy. Yeah, that's the point. No one would be expecting it. No one would be able to believe it if they heard it. But that is how you make someone look strong. That is how you establish a new guy, a new top guy. Something that everyone and their grandmother is saying that Obafemi is going to be the next big thing, the big next top guy in his company. A lot of big eyes are on him with a lot of high expectations for him. Now, he'll be fine. I tweeted that out earlier. He will be fine. This one loss is not going to kill Oba's push. It won't diminish the crowd reactions to him. It won't make him lesser than Brock Lesnar. This makes him equal to Brock Lesnar. They had the chance to make him superior to Brock, but they want to make them equals. One win apiece, gonna have their third match. It's just a matter of when. I don't think they needed to make Oba lose. Again, this is just their formula. You win one, he wins one. Even Steven, third match, there you go. It's a formula that works for them. Does it work creatively? Does it work entertainingly as a viewer watching it? No, but it is what it is. We also had Rhea Ripley, as I mentioned. She won over Jade Cargill, and this was a really good match, even better than their match at WrestleMania, which I thought was also good. So this was even better. And we had some interference from Michin and B-Fab. At one point, I think it was B-Fab, she put Jade's foot on the bottom rope to save her from, taking a loss. And then as the referee was kicking them out came Charlotte Flair, who was out for vengeance after Jade took out her partner, Alexa Bliss, the previous night on SmackDown. She was out there. She wiped out B-Fab and Michin. And then as Jade hit Jaded on Rhea and went for the cover, Charlotte put Rhea's foot on the bottom rope and saved it. So Charlotte basically screwed over Jade Cargill here and awarded the win to Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley retains the championship. Good for her. Here's how I see this going. Jade will use this interference from Charlotte as an excuse to why she lost. And here's what I think is going to happen. Now, as I speak, the post show is airing and they're laying out the brackets for the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments coming up. So I have no way of seeing this. I'm not going to retroactively edit this. This is just free-form thoughts here, what I think is going to happen. I think the Queen of the Ring tournament is going to come down to Charlotte Flair and Jade Cargill. Or at least at some point in the tournament, they're going to meet up and Charlotte will win. And Charlotte will win the entire tournament and she will turn around, come back, and face Rhea one-on-one at SummerSlam for the championship. The big next match for Jade coming out of this loss is going to be against Charlotte. It's just a matter of when they're going to do it. My prediction is it's going to be during the Queen of the Ring tournament. And I'm predicting that it's going to come down to the two of them as the finalists. Jade was the finalist last year, and I could see it happening again. Now, is it likely that they're going to beat Jade 3 straight? I called for them to do that with Brock. They didn't do it with him. So I doubt they would do it with Jade, but I think there's at least a chance, especially if it gets that match with Charlotte like they want to do. So I say Charlotte beats her, and that leads to her winning Queen of the Ring, and that sets up her and Rhea for the championship at SummerSlam. Because I do think that match is going to be in the works this year, and I think SummerSlam would be the time to do it. Now, they could avoid the Queen of the Ring tournament and all that and still do Charlotte versus Jade and lead to Rhea and Charlotte too, but this is just my prediction for that. And then, as I mentioned, Sol Ruca beat Becky Lynch for the Intercontinental Championship. Good match. Some of Sol's offense can be a little shaky at times, but these two worked well enough together. This was essentially the come down match on the show because it followed the opener and Oba and Brock and all that, and it was going on right before the main event, so the crowd was not quite as loud for this one as they were for some of the other matches, but they were still into it, and they were into Sol. Of course, Jessica Carr was the referee, so you had some back and forth with her and Becky, but in the end, a good-looking Soul Snatcher, probably the best one she has hit since coming up to the main roster, leads to her winning the Intercontinental Championship. As I mentioned before, she has yet to win a singles match on TV since becoming a active main roster talent, so this was her win. Where does she go from here? I don't know. Only WWE knows that and what they can do with her on the show. I just hope they book her well. I'm not worried about Becky. I think her presence in a world championship picture could be useful. That would be weird right now, considering that Liv Morgan is a heel champion right now, but I don't know. I'm not worried about what they're going to do with Becky. Becky will be just fine. Maybe she'll continue feuding with Sol for a few more months. I don't know, but I'm hoping for the best with Sol Ruca. And that's it. That's it for the show. Like I said, it was still a good show. I have my complaints, my many big complaints about the direction they're heading in, but I mean, isolated, when you just look at some of the matches on the show, they were good. I thought the show ended very flat. I thought the opening match ended very flat. I don't know. Maybe this wasn't a thumbs up show. Maybe thumbs in the middle would be more appropriate. I don't know. Thumbs slightly up. Man, it's hard to really get into this. The week-to-week TV shows still aren't very good. And the stories that they're telling with these guys, like, it's good that they are telling stories. It's just these stories aren't really all that great. I'm coming out of this show, I gotta be honest with you, I'm not overly thrilled with the direction they're going in with Cody versus Gunther. I'm not overly thrilled with the direction they're going in with the Bloodline and Roman and Jacob. I'm not super enthusiastic to see Sol Ruca and Becky Lynch continue their feud. Brock and Oba, I mean, it is what it is. I don't know. That's just where we stand with this. I don't know. But all I can do is hope for the best. And I thank all of you for tuning in here and listening to me ramble on about this. Again, if you are someone who likes a lot of this stuff, you love Cody, you love Brock, you love Roman and the Bloodline. Clearly the fans in Turin did. They were singing Brock's theme song. They loved Cody, although it did sound like they booed that finish with Cody, but still, they were cheering for Cody. They loved Roman. And they're going to continue to love Roman, especially as this international tour goes on and Roman's on some of these shows over the next month. They love him too. So we'll see all this continue and carry out and see where it goes. I'll try to, check in with it, but I really have no interest in sitting through all of these shows from start to finish. I can't do it. But I keep coming back here to talk about it, so must be a glutton for punishment. But either way, thank you guys for tuning in. Check you later.